Hello everyone, today let's talk about China building the world's first fourth-generation nuclear power thorium molten salt reactor. Also, Trump has announced the beginning of the Sino-American era, and international relations scholar Mearsheimer has said that the era of the US unilaterally dominating the world is over. After the meeting between the Chinese and US leaders, Trump called it the Sino-American Summit, meaning a meeting between the two major powers. At a press conference, an Indian journalist asked, saying that Trump's remarks give the impression that China and the US are working hard to establish a Sino-American bloc, which could have a profound impact on the current global order. The journalist asked, what is China's response? Foreign Ministry spokesperson Guo Jiajun replied, saying that China has always pursued an independent and peaceful foreign policy. As the largest developing country, a partner of the non-aligned movement, and a member of the Global South, China has always stood on the side of the vast number of developing countries. What China means is, China respects the opinions of Global South countries and will not let just China and the US decide everything. However, Trump started this trade war. Even though he couldn't win against China, he shifted the burden onto the other 6 countries of the G7, leaving them with nothing. Now, he openly talks about the Sino-American bloc, completely disregarding the other 6 countries in the group. Besides the US, the G7 includes Germany, the UK, France, Italy, Japan, and Canada, with the EU as an informal member. Apart from the 2 countries that joined, all the rest are European countries. Trump doesn't take European countries seriously, thinking talking to them is a waste because they're useless. He has declared the world is in a G2 era. For the EU, this makes them feel more threatened. With an agreement close, the EU worries about being marginalized or even targeted by the US and China together. On October 27, the South China Morning Post published an interview with John Mearsheimer, a renowned international relations professor from the University of Chicago. Mearsheimer is well known for his theory of offensive realism in international relations. This theory argues that great powers strive to dominate the international system, and that there is constant security competition among them, which can sometimes even lead to war. In the interview, Mearsheimer said that although the unipolar world led by the United States, formed after the dissolution in 1991, has ended, since 2017 we have lived in a multipolar world. In this world, he believes the United States, China, and Russia are the 3 main powers. China is a peer competitor to the United States, especially in world power. China is very strong economically and is now turning its economic strength into military power. In this multipolar world, China is very interested in asserting itself. China seeks more influence in international organizations like the United Nations and World Trade Organization. He noted the Belt and Road Initiative as one example, the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank as another, and BRICS cooperation as a third. A reporter then asked Miskmo, "You previously said that the US would not accept a rival that could match its power, but China advocates for win-win cooperation and urges the US to abandon zero-sum thinking. What do you think about this?" Missy Lab replied, "The Chinese talk about win-win, and it actually makes a lot of sense. This kind of moderate rhetoric helps other countries believe that China is a constructive participant in international affairs. After all, surviving in the international jungle is the top priority for every country. Because if you can't survive, you'll be facing a century of national humiliation, or even disappear from the face of the earth. That's why survival is always the top priority for any country, whether we're talking about China, the US, Nicaragua, or South Africa. In the international arena, the best way to survive is to be strong. If you're weak, other countries will take advantage of you, so the best way to survive is to be powerful." He said, "If I were a Chinese citizen, I would want China to be stronger than any other country on earth." In the international arena, the best way to survive is to become extremely powerful. China understands this, and so does the United States, which is why these 2 countries are competing to become even stronger. The reporter then asked, "Are we still living in a state of international anarchy?" Mearsheimer replied, "Internationally, we do live in a state of anarchy, because there is no higher authority to enforce the rules. That's why international law has limited effectiveness. In the international arena, there is no world government with such high authority, and there is no international police force. This is why every country must ensure its own security, and it's also why they want to maintain a favorable balance of power. In short, the international system is a self-help system, and in this system, the best way to survive is to be strong. All countries will quickly come to realize this. After watching Mearsheimer's interview, we can simply sum up that since 1991, the world has been dominated by a unipolar order led by the United States. Now, that era has ended. In terms of military power, we've entered a multipolar world where the US, China, and Russia all coexist as major powers. Second, Russia has been greatly weakened by the Russia-Ukraine war, especially economically. Trump means that, although China won't recognize this as a legitimate international order, it already exists. Europe is gradually losing influence in international affairs as it weakens. Also, China has made significant breakthroughs in nuclear power technology. China has built the world's only 11 soil-based experimental reactors, showing its nuclear technology advantage. On December 1st, the Chinese Academy of Sciences announced that the 4th-generation advanced fission nuclear energy system, the soil-based molten experimental reactor, designed and built by China, was recently completed in Wuwei, Gansu. It also achieved, for the first time, in-reactor conversion of nuclear fuel from thorium to uranium. This system's completion is expected to break China's dependence on uranium fuel for nuclear power and use its abundant reserves. Using thorium as nuclear fuel supports our country's energy security and sustainable development. Traditional nuclear power generates electricity through uranium fission, with uranium as the main fuel. Most new nuclear plants are 3rd generation, which are already very safe. In the future, 4th-generation reactors like the thorium molten salt reactor will be even safer. The new thorium molten salt reactor in Wuwei, Gansu, is currently the only operating nuclear reactor in the world to generate power using thorium fuel. The thorium molten salt reactor uses thorium as fuel, and also uses fluoride salt as coolant. It's a new type of nuclear energy system that has several advantages, such as inherent safety, water-free cooling, operation at normal pressure, and high-temperature output. For many people, thorium reactors are quite unfamiliar, so what exactly is this facility? Li Qinglian, deputy director of the Institute of Applied Physics, Chinese Academy of Sciences, said that when it comes to thorium molten salt reactors, everyone should remember 2 key phrases. The first is thorium-based, meaning it uses thorium. The other key phrase is molten salt, which means using molten salt as the coolant. The key to nuclear reactions is that when thorium absorbs a neutron, it transforms into another element. Only uranium-233, produced through this process, is the nuclear fuel that generates heat in a fast nuclear reaction. During this transmutation, another neutron is produced, which bombards thorium again, turning it back into uranium-233. This creates a continuous thorium-uranium cycle, releasing a huge amount of energy. What are the main features of molten salt reactors? First, safety. In this nuclear power plant design, scientists have adopted new approaches to ensure the safety of molten salt reactors. Because they use liquid fuel, any solid byproducts dissolve in the salt, allowing the reactor to keep running without shutting down. The solid byproducts are extracted from the bottom and processed. To prevent radioactive material from leaking, scientists have innovatively designed an integrated reactor, combining the reactor core, fuel, heat pump, heat exchanger, and other key equipment all within the main vessel of the reactor. Unlike existing nuclear power plants, where some core equipment is outside the main vessel, this design further enhances safety. By placing the heat exchanger inside the reactor vessel, the fuel salt never needs to leave the main body of the reactor, staying entirely within the main container. It won't go outside, and there's also a safety containment vessel outside the main reactor vessel, so there are multiple layers of protection. This new design significantly reduces the risk of radioactive leakage. In addition, the reactor uses molten salt as a coolant, which has a boiling point higher than its operating temperature. Molten salt cooling allows the reactor to operate at high temperatures while maintaining low vapor pressure. Therefore, the reactor core can run at atmospheric pressure instead of high pressure, which further improves safety and achieves higher thermal efficiency. Experts say molten salt reactors are safer than traditional power plants that operate under high pressure, since there's no risk of ruptures or explosions from high pressure. Another benefit of liquid fuel is it avoids the risk of core meltdown. However, building molten salt reactors has major technical challenges. Experts explain the salt's corrosiveness is extremely strong, and overcoming it is a major challenge for research teams. After years of research, China has solved the purification problem of molten salt. They have kept oxygen content and impurities extremely low. The LIFT machine, developed independently in China, has also controlled salt corrosiveness, laying a foundation for future molten salt reactor industry use. Dai Jimin, director of the Shanghai Institute of Applied Physics, Chinese Academy of Sciences, said that internationally, molten salt corrodes container materials at about 20 micrometers per year, but China has reduced this to about 2 micrometers. The new molten salt reactor in China is a significant technical advantage internationally. The second feature is that it doesn't use uranium. High uranium costs and limited supply have restricted China's nuclear energy. Molten salt reactors use thorium, which is abundant in China, instead. Dai Jimin, director at the Shanghai Institute of Applied Physics, Chinese Academy of Sciences, says thorium is found with rare earth ores, and since China has many rare earth mines, thorium resources are especially abundant. Researching thorium-based reactors suits China's needs. In theory, if all China's electricity came from thorium, it could supply us for up to 1,000 years, ensuring national energy security. The third feature is molten salt cooling. Normally, nuclear reactors need lots of water for cooling, but molten salt reactors do not, so they're not limited to coastal areas. They can also be built inland, which helps promote and apply them in inland regions like Xinjiang in the future. The fourth feature is that, when combined with new energy sources, thorium-based reactors can be built in vast arid regions, which are also where much new energy equipment is located. They work well with wind and solar power, helping solve the intermittency problem. Wind and solar depend on weather. Only when there is wind or sunlight can they generate electricity. By building thorium-based reactors inland, they can provide power when wind and solar are insufficient, helping balance and stabilize the grid and create a complementary energy system. The current operating temperature of this thorium-based reactor is 700 degrees Celsius, ideal for high-temperature hydrogen production. Its hydrogen production efficiency is high, and since it uses nuclear power, it's green. The hydrogen produced is green hydrogen, seen as the ultimate energy source of the 21st century. It could play an important role in energy, and hydrogen production technology of molten salt thorium reactors will be even more eco-friendly. In short, China has built the world's first thorium-based molten salt reactor. This is a major breakthrough and puts us ahead of the world. This nuclear power plant is safe, clean, and efficient. It can integrate with high-temperature molten salt energy storage, hydrogen production, solar, wind, coal, gas, oil, and the chemical industry. This enables a multi-energy complementary, low-carbon integrated energy system and a low-carbon industrial system, which is vital for our country's future energy development.